Today is all about our guests. The two speakers, the main guests tonight, will be and our Cybint CEO and founder Roy, as well as the LCC professor and the bootcamp facilitator Jeff. So we'll start. I'll give the floor to Roy, and we'll allow him to talk about Cybit and the history behind and the present, and then we'll move on. So thank you, gentlemen, for being with us tonight, and go ahead.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it's a great opportunity to share our insights, Jeff and mine, with the audience right now. I know we are both on Zoom, and on Facebook, so I hope this will be relevant to the participants. I'll try to discuss or to elaborate more about cybersecurity in general as a profession, as a field of expertise, and not just about Cybint. So I don't want to focus more on the company and just to give you a broader understanding of the field, so you can understand what you can gain from deciding to take cybersecurity as a career path. But maybe I'll start with a short introduction about myself. So I started my professional career in the Israeli Cybersecurity and Cyber Intelligence Unit. So the Israeli Cyber Intelligence Unit, called Unit 8200, it's one of the leading cyber intelligence units globally. And in this unit, we have a challenge. And our challenge is that majority of people that we recruit to the unit are actually 18-year-old high school graduates. Because of the way the unit works, like a military unit, we cannot afford having people with a degree or with PhD, so we have to take people with no experience in cybersecurity, and in a matter of 3 to 6 months, get them ready to start working in the cybersecurity space. So this is a big challenge that we have in Israel, and we do it with hundreds and thousands of people every year. And based on the same concept that we do in the military training, we developed the Cybint Bootcamp, taking the same concept of accelerated learning in cybersecurity, combining it with hands-on activities and challenges, and create a path that can take someone from what we call zero in cybersecurity to hero, or zero to employed in cybersecurity. Now, I know we're not really starting from zero. From everyone comes with a different background, but we assume that from the cybersecurity element, we start from no background at all. So we build it from the networking and IT toward the advanced security, up to how to actually perform in a SOC environment, like a security operations center, what we call SOC, and giving you the right tools and knowledge, skills, abilities to do the job as a cybersecurity professional. So I'm going to share my screen so I can share more about about what we do at Cybint, and then I will. Jeff will continue about elaborating about his experience and specifically about the bootcamp with LCC. So 1 second, I will share the screen. Meanwhile, I'll say that you have the ability to ask questions throughout the session. So I think it will be useful for you to ask questions. Some of the questions can be about cybersecurity, other can be about the bootcamp itself, about Cybint, about LCC. So feel free to use the Q&A box for any question you may have. So let's start. So specifically, as I mentioned, the background of starting Cybint came from the Israeli, let's say, military or Israeli cyber unit. And we combined our experience with educators from different universities and colleges globally, mostly in the US, together with other experts and professionals from the industry, what we call CISO, cyber security, different people that in charge of the security aspects, chief information security officers from different companies, CIOs from different companies. Together, we created Cybint to bring a company or to build a company that can bring these learning methodologies to the industry. Now, the thing is, when we talk about cyber attacks and cyber crimes, a lot of times we think that this is something that happens, once a week or once a month when there is a big thing in the news. But it's interesting to understand that cyber attacks and cyber crimes, they happen in the millions every day. I mean, many companies are targeted constantly and have to deal with different attacks and different alerts. Not all of them are successful, but some are successful, and some are successful up to the point that the company is not even, doesn't even aware of the fact that they were attacked. So some attacks, it takes even time to reveal them, to find them. And we see that with time, even before COVID, the number and of cyber attacks and the sophistication of cyber attacks is growing. And specifically with COVID, with majority of the workforce is moving online, with more studies is going online, with more online elements are getting to our lives, like Zoom, for example, then also the cyber crimes are on the rise, and more hackers and attackers are targeting actually online components and online elements instead of physical elements, because crime is just moving from the physical space more to the online space. So this is in general the concept of cyber attacks. Now, specifically when we talk about the value at risk, what is the damage that cyber attacks cause to our economy, for example, then we see that the estimation, this specific research is coming from Accenture, one of the leading research institutions in the world. The research was conducted last year. And the research shows that the estimated cost or value at risk from cyber attacks in the next 5 years, since 2019, is about 5.2 trillion US dollars, which is about twice the GDP of a country like the UK. So it's a massive amount of money. And that was even before the effects of COVID that accelerated, this process. And what's interesting is that although it sounds like a technological issue, when we think about cybersecurity, most people think about, oh, that's a technological issue. But it's interesting that actually the biggest challenge we have, or the weakest link in cybersecurity, is actually the human factor. So the fact that we have both human error and underqualified personnel and not enough people in this industry is one of the main reasons that right now the cyber crimes, the cyber attacks are on the rise, and we struggle to stop it globally as a global effort. And specifically when we talk about the human factor challenge, and in the context of this bootcamp, we understand that there is a big gap, what we call talent shortage, in the world of cybersecurity. So we are talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs that are unfilled in Europe alone, and millions globally. So there are more than 4 million, estimation of more than 4 million unfilled jobs in cybersecurity, which from the industry side is a challenge, but from our side as potential professional in cybersecurity, it's an opportunity, because it means that a decision to choose cybersecurity as a career path is a decision that can benefit us for the long term of a career path with a lot of growth opportunities, with what we call 0% unemployment or 100% employment in many different areas. And this is one of the reasons that we decided as Cybint to develop this field and to allow more people to join this market of cybersecurity. Now, specifically at Cybint, we started first as a training company before we developed the bootcamp. We brought trainers from different units in Israel and around the world, and we trained some of the biggest companies in the world. Now, based on this experience and with a vision to create a bigger impact in scale, we actually developed our programs and platforms and products, what we call our learning, training, and simulation platforms, that we have from K-12 learning in cybersecurity up to advanced bootcamps and advanced corporate learning in cybersecurity. And this platform that is being used also in the bootcamp structure is comprised of different elements that put a lot of emphasis on the hands-on component, meaning that it's not just a regular course where you study from, presentations and textbooks, but it's actually a breathing and living system in which content is being updated based on real threats from the market, in which you deal with more than 100 labs, simulations, and scenarios, and you're what we call learning by doing. So not just learning the theory, but actually go directly to the practical side of cybersecurity. So in this boot camp that Jeff will elaborate as well, you get access to a platform. So you have a personal user to a platform that has all the content and labs and challenges and scenarios, updates, etc. And you learn in this platform in a blended mode, meaning there is a facilitator. In this case, for example, there is someone who leads the process, like Jeff, in different places around the world. And you also have access to all the content, and you keep learning in a blended mode where some of the content or some of the process is being done with the facilitator and other is being done kind of like self-paced online. And you can, in that way, you can also, if you find that some elements are more difficult for you than others, you can invest more time in learning them, re-practice some elements, etc., etc. And all of this based on what we call the lab environment, which, as I mentioned, there are more than 100 labs. All of the labs are fully online. So you don't have to download anything, to install anything. It's what we call browser-based. So everything is on the AWS infrastructure. You don't need to do anything other than use your browser that gives you access to everything you need. So in that context, what we are trying to do at Cybint is to create a new paradigm of learning, moving from learning that is theoretical to learning that is hands-on, from learning that is lagging, so you learn the past, to something that is evergreen, so we learn the future, from something that is inefficient in a way in the learning a lot of time to something that is accelerated. And in that element is something that is career oriented. By the way, we think that research is super important, and people are going to universities and learn degrees also to expand in the research field. It's just different, different learning objectives. At the Cybint Bootcamp, the focus is more on the career orientation. So it's more about getting a job and finding a way to grow in this, in the Cybint element. Now, specifically, the way we work globally, Cybint is working only through accredited and known education institutions globally, like LCC. So our model is that we partner with universities, with colleges, with vocational training companies from small to big around the world. And we create this network of cyber education centers. So in that case, what we see this partnership with LCC is part of the bigger partnership that Cybint has globally. And by joining the Cybint program, you also join this global effort. Meaning at this point, we already have these boot camps in different parts of the United States, of Southeast Asia, mostly in Singapore, starting soon in Australia. In several parts of Europe, we have some partnership with non-universities, like coding boot camps and others. And now with LCC, we are going to expand this to Lithuania and to Europe. So this is something that we believe that will provide you not just the benefit of the skills and knowledge, et cetera, but also be part of this global network of cybersecurity professionals. So the bootcamp, as Jeff may elaborate, is a very intense program. Specifically in the full-time program, it's intense, but it's definitely doable. I mean, people, even without the background, join the cybersecurity bootcamp and succeed in it. Meaning that they graduate, they get their what we call their certification and the knowledge and the skills, and then they have this job opportunities, not just in their main, let's say, territory, but this is an international skill. So as LCC is also an international university, this is part of the mindset of studying something that is not limited to a specific location, but it's a skill, it's a set of skills and knowledge that can allow you to grow in different places in your career around the world. And the bootcamp experience is also in a way a fun experience, meaning you are part of a cohort. we understand that this intense program cannot be, just self-paced. You have to be part of something. You create a cohort. The cohort has this learning groups and challenges, and you work within the system and you help each other. So you create this, help with the help of this network of experts around the world, etc. And you can see your progress in the boot camp that is being measured in the system. We can identify together where are your kind of like weakest or weaker areas that need to be worked on, so you can see constant improvement. And in general, what we see globally is that we see high level of positive feedback, consistent from different partners and different learners globally. So I cannot 100% guarantee that this will be your personal experience, but I can say in high level of confidence that most people that joined the bootcamp feel that it even exceeded their expectations in both the content level and the ability to work in this space afterwards. Now, I want to say a few things, a few words, and give some examples before I move the speaking to Jeff, because a lot of time, again, we think about cybersecurity as something that is narrow. A lot of people think that is a narrow field of expertise. Just data protection or review of logs and working with some tools to monitor a network, and that's it. But cybersecurity has a lot of different areas. And the concept of the bootcamp is actually to give you the ability to start an entry-level position in cybersecurity, and then you can decide where you want to grow in the space. Because the bootcamp that prepares you to a cybersecurity analyst position is actually preparing you for multiple abilities to do in the future. You can grow from there to elements that are more like SOC operator and SOC manager, what we call the security operations center, and the protect and defend concept. But you can grow from there to threat intelligence, or if you have some development experience, you can focus more on secure development. So there are different elements that can be done after the bootcamp. And we see that across the board worldwide, also the entry-level salaries for cybersecurity analysts globally are very good. So regardless if you are going to work in Lithuania, if you're going to work in other countries around the world, the opportunities are significantly higher than average. Now, just to give you some examples on why it's important to deal with cybersecurity, I want to kind of like cover a few questions. It will take 5 more minutes to cover these, and then Jeff will elaborate. So a lot of time when we think about cybersecurity, again, we just think about the technical elements. But one of the things we are trying to do here and in the bootcamp itself is also to develop what we call the hacker mindset, kind of like to get you into the mindset of how the attacker thinks, so then you can be a better defender. So I want to give you an example. So for example, a story that happened about 3 years ago actually, there was a big ransomware attack globally that was called the WannaCry attack. It was in May 2017. And this ransomware attack, that's a malware, a malicious software that found its way to millions of devices and computers around the world, affected them with ransomware. So once they try to get access to their data, they have to pay a ransom. So in this case, the WannaCry attack was a pure, what we call cyber crime, meaning somebody launched this attack to make money out of it. Lock the computers, ask for money. If you pay the money, you got back the data, or you got the key to decrypt the data. But 2 months later, there was another attack that looked like another ransomware. But this time, if you pay the ransom, you got a key that doesn't work. And then if you ask yourself now as a cybersecurity professional, why would a cyber criminal, that just wants your money, will give you a key that doesn't work? Because then you'll tell your friends and colleagues and the World Wide Web, you'll tell everyone, well, these hackers are not really giving you your data back, so don't pay them. So it doesn't make sense to do that. And then you can kind of like, if you are a good cyber professional, you start asking questions like, okay, why or who? And then you see, for example, that in this second attack that the hackers didn't provide the key, most of the victims were in Ukraine. And then you also start asking questions, okay, well, in 2017, who has an interest to cause damage mostly to Ukraine, which is not necessarily a cyber criminal because there is no what we call financial gain out of it. It's mostly to cause damage. And then, for example, the World Cybersecurity Network or community kind of like point a finger or blame the Russian elements around it. So we understand that suddenly cybersecurity is not just about an industry challenge or a cyber crime. You're starting to deal with geopolitical forces. So it's beyond just what we think that cybersecurity is. And it's not just the Russians, right? We have the Chinese, we have the Americans, we have the Israelis, and we have others. So we understand that right now, when we think about cyber attacks, a lot of countries, a lot of different groups, government-led organizations develop their what we call cyber warfare capabilities. So it's not just about protecting against criminals, but it's also protecting against other what we call threat actors. So we have these nation states for geopolitical reasons, cyber criminals for profit reasons, what we call hacktivists, the ideological hackers, and others. And when you think about it, you understand that suddenly you are actually in the heart of this global pandemic, which is not COVID in this case, but it's the cyber pandemic. You actually have to deal with this thing that affects everyone and going to affect more and more people, countries, critical infrastructure, economic elements, industries, et cetera, et cetera. So deciding to work in cybersecurity is also just deciding to be one of the, let's call it the good guys. So it's helping the world, the governments, the industries, actually to fight against either criminals, government-led organizations, and others. And we protect, right? We protect and defend against all of these different attacks that we don't have time to cover, but the ransomware and the malware that takes control of your computer, and the spyware that collects information about you, and the data breaches that find their way into the dark web and cause millions of dollars of damage for companies, and what we call the denial of service attacks that cause damages to service either in for consumers or for other organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So we actually learn how to deal with all of these things and answer all of these questions while we are getting or being equipped with actual skills and actual tools that allow us to do that.